So you wrote the screenplay for Madeline's. Where did this clever idea come from?
I would love to take credit for this clever idea, but it was actually Jason, the director's idea.
Okay.
He had a short written with this premise, and he and I were looking for something to collaborate on, and he brought it to me, and we ended up writing it together. So it was really Jason's brain that came up with this bizarro premise.
I'll give you both equal credit because I think it was great.
Thank you.
So what process did you and Jason and Perry and the cast have to go through to bring this film to fruition?
Well, I mean, this is a very small movie. You just named basically everyone who was there. And we shot it at places we already lived at or owned. So the process was it was a bunch of people who already knew each other. So for us, it was sort of like, we had Jason and I had a script that we've been trying to make for a while that never came to fruition. And so we were sort of just looking for something we could make with each other on a very, very small budget in the locations we knew. So that's sort of where it started. And then from there, we wrote the script, and then the turnaround time was really quick because we made it for so little. We just kind of wrote it and then made it a few weeks later. This is not the suggested path for most movies, I will say. But it ended up being fine for this one.
Definitely. No, it works, all of it. So what made you feel compelled to portray Madeline? Did you have I imagine having written the character, you'd have a really kind of intimate view on motivations, thoughts, and just interested in kind of how that came to be as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think when Jason first brought this idea to me, I thought it was really interesting because I think, we don't necessarily view our past selves as our present selves and our future selves. And we often don't do what's best for our future selves in the present. And I kept thinking about this sort of being opposed to or in competition with or making poor decisions for other versions of yourself. Because I know sometimes I look back at 20-year-old Brea and I'm like, why did you do that? Why did you make that choice? Because now I'm facing the consequences of it, even though of course that's me. So with someone like Madeline, who is clearly a flawed character and makes some kind of poor decisions that end up hurting her through the whole movie, also has to face these other versions of herself who she ends up being in opposition to. And so I just thought that was a really interesting way to view these different versions of ourselves throughout our lives and showing how much we change, which hopefully that made sense when we were making it. We made this movie a long time ago. So these questions are like, oh yeah, this is what I was thinking, but we did make it 5 years ago. So it is hard. It's a little bit hard to remember.
Gotcha. No, it makes sense. And it's interesting to explore the way, one simple thing could have changed the trajectory, one choice, no matter, how caught up in the minutia it is. So
yeah. Which I think multiple timeline movies do this really well. If you have, you see oh, I took the left instead of a right here, and now I became the CEO of a company. So it's sort of that idea, but on a much smaller scale, where instead it's just a person who's one day older or just a little different version at first, and then obviously she becomes a different version as time goes on.
Yeah. So like you were saying, the cast is very small, but everybody in the film had great chemistry. Were you involved at all in the casting? I know Perry had said that you guys kind of had similar friends, ran in similar circles.
Yeah, and Jason had worked with Perry before. I had met Perry just through the world of horror movies. So when we were trying to think of who would also be in the movie, I mean, there's only 2 other people really in the movie. He came up as someone that we both really liked, and it seems sort of like a no-brainer because I think he's funny and charming and cute and also a good actor. So it was all the kind of boxes, and he was down for the cause. He as long as he could bring his puppy at the time, and then he was fine, that he was willing to show up on this very small indie movie.
Perfect. Kind of piggybacking off of that, what was it like working with Jason to kind of collaborate so tightly just to bring the vision to screen with the budget and the time that you had?
I mean, I am a big believer in having someone steer the ship. And I think that once we start shooting, I had to do a lot of producerial things, but as far as like the making of the movie and the vision of the movie, that's Jason's vision. We came up with the script together and the beats together and sort of how I would do things. But then after that point, I stepped back and, made sure lunch was there, or made sure there was like a mouse for us to have on set, like things like along those lines. But I wasn't involved in the directorial choices after that, although I did help, like paint rooms, and when he had an idea, I'd like cover a wall with post-it notes or something like that. But for the most part, it was, since I co-wrote the script, we kind of knew what the characters were going to be like from the get-go. And I've acted with him before and known Jason for a long time, and he has a background in special effects, so I knew I was in good hands with whatever he was trying to do.
Yeah, awesome. There are moments in the movie where every character could be both the villain and the victim. Was this your intention when writing the central conflict?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the most interesting characters are those that live in the gray area, and I keep getting drawn to those kinds of characters. I don't love people who are specifically heroes or specifically villains. And I think Madeline is a really complicated character, who's frustrated with her career, sometimes frustrated with her marriage, and just wants to make things better. And then different versions of her act out in different ways. And I didn't want you to ever hate her or think she's making not a great decision, but probably the proper decision that her character would make at that time.
Yeah. No, I think it was very effective. I didn't have any disdain for any character. I was just like, that was an interesting choice you made. Did you enjoy thinking of new and creative ways to kill off Madeline? I have to think that it would be kind of fun.
It was fun. That was a lot of like us coming up with stuff. There was at one point that the producer Ed and I found this old shop in the valley that had all these old. A lot of the stuff that you see on set is from this shop that has all these old like rocket and computer parts and things like that. And we went there, and that was when we were like, okay, well, this could be like a thing that electrocutes her, and this could be, whatever. But it also was really reliant on what kind of special effects Jason could do. I mean, this is when you're writing a movie of this size, I feel like filmmakers are always asking this question, like, what should I do that's small? And it's like, well, what do you know how to do? And, Jason knew how to do things that would make it look like my face would come off or something. And he knew how to make it look like I was being electrocuted, but there are things that are like much harder to do. So it was sort of like figuring out those things that were both achievable and we had the means to do, I guess.
Mm-hmm. No, I think there was a perfect balance that was struck there. What's one thing you hope fans take away from Madeline's?
I mean, for me, I think it's a cool movie to show. I mean, I was to show what you can do if you really like want to make something with your friends. But I think, that is also to say that we're all professional filmmakers and Jason knows how to make visual effects. So I don't know, it's probably a little harder than just making something with your friends. But I also think, I don't know. I mean, I think the movie does have something to say about, appreciating your past self, like being nice to your future self and all these different versions of yourself. And maybe the best self is the one right in front of you. But, I think we all make mistakes and our future selves pay for that.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. You're a celebrated voice among genre fans now.
Celebrated?
I think so. Pretty tapped into the horror community. And
thanks.
I'm pretty sure, even James and Chelsea from Dead Meat have had pretty good things to say about you.
That's nice. I like them. They're very nice.
But have you always been interested in the darker side of the human condition?
Yeah, for sure. I think even when I was like interested in, more comedy or something like that, I was always looking for the darker side of that. But I mean, yeah, I've always liked horror movies, comic books, genre stuff. Like that's always been an interest of mine. I think I've been very fortunate, um, as far as where my career took me, is that it actually took me into that world, and I was able to continue in that
Mhm.
world. Because God knows I could have been on a soap opera. I don't know. That would have been like, it would have been wild. I would have been a soap opera, but a woman who loved horror movies on a soap opera. I don't know. Um, so yeah, I mean, I like being in this world. I like genre stuff. I think I definitely approach it maybe differently than other people. I am looking for complicated characters, and a lot more female characters, and a little bit more humor maybe than some people, but definitely all that stuff with like a side of darkness is my favorite.
Madeline's was funny. There were a lot of moments where you just had to laugh out loud, from the like the craziness of it to it's just funny. So
Oh,
I
good.
think that really shines through. What other projects are you currently working on?
I have a movie that I directed for Blumhouse last year that comes out on, ooh, I think it comes out, hold on, I'm going to tell you right now. This is something I should just know. It comes out on May the 20th. You can
Okay.
rent it starting May the 20th. It's called Torn Hearts. And I directed it last year, and it's about country music singers and horror, and it's really fun. It stars Katie Seagal. So yeah, just trying to get that out in the world. It's very exciting.
Yeah, that
Um,
sounds good.
yeah.
Perfect. Last question is there anything that you would like to say to fans and followers of your work?
Um, like just generally, like, thank you. I was like, do I have to get some sage advice now? I don't know.
No, you don't have to get existential or
I'm not very existential. You've seen my movies. No, thank you. I mean, I will say it's been really nice. I directed my first movie in 2013, and then I didn't come back to directing until 12-hour Shift didn't come out and start going places until 2020. So there's a big gap for me there, and it's really nice to have people come out and support me, because I know it's, people know me as an actor, and they're like, how can she direct a movie? And I felt like so many people were so supportive of this sort of career change for me. And it's been really nice to have people on board for that.
Awesome.